All right, let's talk Dallas Cowboys. We are in the middle of training camp now. Exciting football is closer to returning. Day 2 in the books here. A lot of exciting news going on. Of course, it's Dallas, so there's a lot of drama unfolding as well, but a lot of really positive stuff. Head coach Brian Schottenheimer doing a great job. And to that end, it looks like the Dallas Cowboys have not one, but 2 steals, big-time steals emerging. That's what we're going to headline today's daily report on. Without further ado, let's jump right into the news here. One thing we do is we'll try and highlight on all of these reports. We won't try, we will. Every single reporter's Twitter or X handle, whatever you want to call it. So that way, if you want to go follow these guys on your own, you certainly can on social media. We only use reputable sources to make sure we bring you guys the best news. But this report is courtesy of Nick Harris at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. The Post says, Cowboys head coach Brian Schottenheimer gave us a name yesterday that might be off the radar, but he said to keep an eye out for. A guy to watch out for is Nate Thomas. He's doing great. He's a guy we didn't get to see a lot of football out of last year. He's been great. After being drafted in the 7th round of the 2024 draft, Thomas missed all of his rookie year after suffering from knee tendonitis. He's worked his ass off getting back. He had a great spring, worked incredibly hard, and was here all the time. We're moving him around. He's playing multiple spots. He looks really good right now at tackle. He's a big guy that's hard to get around. I love the flexibility that brings. So we talked about Nate Thomas being a 7th round selection last season. Obviously, the injury, as report highlight, he didn't play. And we're not saying Thomas is going to be a starter. He's not going to replace Steele or Guyton most likely. But you talk about a value addition. You talk about getting more in return. This was a 7th round pick that got hurt. A lot of people, myself included, said, okay, is his career done? What impact is he going to have? The fact that Schottenheimer has come out and said, listen, this kid's been impressive all off season. He's a guy that has a lot of great physical tools. We can move around. He's versatile. He's a big part of our offensive plans to evaluate this offensive line throughout training camp in the preseason. I like Nate Thomas as a guy that could emerge. Again, we're talking maybe a swing tackle kind of guy, maybe a guy who can be a depth piece on this offensive line. Because when you have a salary that's top heavy, when you got guys like Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Diggs, and eventually paying Micah Parsons, Osa Digizua got a big deal. Tyler Smith's going to take a lot of money, right? You're going to get in a situation where you're going to have to find key situational players, key role players like a swing tackle, like a backup offensive lineman that is cheap. It's harder to get cheaper than a 7th round pick. Thomas was a guy that coming out of college, a lot of people had some question marks on, but he did seem to have a developmental path to becoming a potential offensive lineman in the National Football League. Injuries hurt that last season. I think with a full offseason, full spring, working his tail off, putting in all that time in the weight room with the coaches, impressing the coaches, impressing Schottenheimer. Don't discount that, right? You're talking about a new culture, new environment in Dallas. Schottenheimer's going to appreciate these guys that are putting in that extra time trying to get better. One of the things we always like to talk about is when it comes to players, we sometimes get in this trap of thinking it's like a video game, right? You come out of college and you're rated a score on 1 to 100, and that's who you are, right? So if you're a 70 or whatever, you're always going to be a 70. That's just who you are as a player. Players get better. Players get worse. It's obvious. We tend to forget that, unfortunately, sometimes. Nate Thomas seems to be the kind of guy where he could get better and better. Definitely a guy to keep an eye on over the course of training camp. This could be, again, a massive steal for the Dallas Cowboys arriving. Maybe a year late, but then again, wasn't a huge need with all the stuff they had at tackle last year in terms of Guyton, Steele. They have all that capital again this year. So it's not like it's an immediate need, but a big value could be emerging at offensive line when it comes to Thomas. All right, this next report here is courtesy of Joe Hoyt at Joe J. Hoyt. And again, we talk about another steal emerging. This was kind of fell under the radar this entire offseason, but I tell you what, Kaiir Elam from the report, this looks like a great find by the Dallas Cowboys. Hoyt posted, Kaiir Elam has been the Cowboys' most consistent cornerback so far through OTA's minicamp and 1 day of training camp practice. He's a guy that's been making plays even so far as we work through multiple practice. He continues to become a better and better player across the board. He's a guy that just finds a way to get interceptions, pass breakups. He is doing everything so far. He's impressing everyone. You talk about a guy whose career was left for dead. A lot of people are like, yeah, it's over, right? Bust. It didn't work out. Had a lot of potential coming out of Florida. He was definitely considered a high risk, high reward kind of guy coming out of college. Did some good things, great physical skill set, little on the small side, some concerns of snap in and snap out production. Comes to the Buffalo Bills, didn't really work out for them. Now going to the Dallas Cowboys, fresh start. Maybe exactly what they needed with the injuries with the Dallas Cowboys at the cornerback position. He's getting more playing time. He stepped up through minicamp, stepped up through OTAs, and now he's stepping up through training camp. He is getting it done at a high level. This is a guy, Kaiir Elam, who could be a starter day one for the Dallas Cowboys at corner, depending on when Trayvon Diggs is able to return. If Deron Bland moves inside to be nickel, he could be a guy that's getting a lot of playing time over the course of the season for Dallas. Dallas. That may not be a bad thing either, especially considering he is a more than willing run defender, edge supporter, tackler, right? He's not the best at it in terms of like elite all pro, but he's willing to do it. He's fundamentally sound. He can do that a lot better than what we've seen of the Cowboys over the past couple of years. Again, we talk about steals, talk about Thomas again, maybe a year late. When it comes to Elam, the fact that Cowboys got him for a song, this may be, again, one of the better steals of the entire NFL offseason. And these are the kind of deals. We talked about it with the Philadelphia Eagles with their linebacker, Zach Bowden, turned out to be a massive get for them, getting him for, a couple $1,000,000 and he becomes a defensive player of the year kind of linebacker. These are the kind of deals, these are the kind of finds that can accelerate a team forward that already has so many dollars allocated to its stars. Elam already off to a great start. Excited to see what's upcoming for this young corner. All right, well, next story here. Let's see what we got. Again, from Joe Hoyt. This was something that's becoming a theme. Another camp scuffle between Marquise Bell and someone on the Cowboys offense. Brian Schottenheimer wasn't happy. He pulled the whole team together in a huddle and told them loudly that the next guy that throws a punch will be kicked off the field. So Schottenheimer wanted a physical camp. He wanted a high-energy camp, and he's getting that in spades. And we're getting a little feistiness. We're getting a little fights emerging. And look, when I played college football at D1 FCS, nothing huge, we would see fights happen in training camp and practice. It's one of those things in hyper-competitive environments. But one of the things that can happen with fights that gets very frustrating, and I saw some coaches that liked it and some that didn't, and I leaned very heavily with what Schottenheimer's approach is here, is you only get so many reps. There's only so many hours in the day, right? Look, there's a time to be feisty and aggressive. That's between the whistles. Throwing punches after the fact doesn't get you anything, right? This isn't, like a brawl. It's different if you're playing Washington or Philly or New York and it's a rivalry game and you're just trying to galvanize the sideline or something like that, get the team going, things like that. That's a little bit different. Even in that case, I'm not necessarily encouraging it, but I can understand it. Here, training camp, you only get so many snaps, only so many minutes, only so many hours over the course of this period to get better, to figure out what players are going to make the team, what roles those guys are going to be in. By getting involved in too many fights, you're subtracting away from that time. And look, this Dallas Cowboys team with a lot of question marks, they need every second they can get. Obviously, you want some feistiness, you want some competitiveness. Let's dial back the fighting, guys. Let's stop throwing punches. Let's focus on getting better. Let's be hyper-aggressive between the whistles. That's what Schottenheimer's preaching, and I'm glad to see it. Because sometimes what happens with some of these younger coaches, younger-ish coaches, they kind of take a step back and just, hey, let the players do what the players do. Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh kind of has that. At least it seems to have that mentality. I don't know if that's 100% fair or not, but that's the vibe you get. And there are some reports out of Pittsburgh. That's kind of what he's like. I think Schottenheimer, listen, we want you to be physical, we want you to be feisty, but it stops after the whistle. And if you hurt this team's development, you're out of here. Love this approach from the young coach. Kind of good rhyme there, approach and coach. Proud of myself. All right, Nick Harris at the Fourth War Star Telegram here again. He said, this is a huge camp for Deuce Vaughn. He's gotten quite a bit of burn playing time, for those who aren't familiar with that jargon, with the twos through the first couple of days of camp. All right, so this is something where I try to be positive, and this makes me a little anxious. Deuce Vaughn had a really nice training camp by all reports last season and a solid preseason. Did absolutely nothing during the regular season, right? I'm not being critical of Vaughn. I hope he does amazing things. I'm rooting for him. But this is concerning to me. I don't like guys, for whatever reason, that are really good in training camp and then just can't get it done against the opposition. There are guys stylistically that are like that, just for whatever reason. I'll give you an example one. Me in college, I just, for whatever reason, was much better in practice, much better in a camp situation than I ever was in any sort of hyper-competitive environment, right? These sort of training camp practices where you're familiar with your opposition, where it's just a weird, different dynamic, right? You're on a practice field, it's a weird schedule. Some players are much better than that, and that's the kind of situations. I always was, and I give my coaches a lot of credit for recognizing, hey, Nick is a practice player, right? That's who he is. He does better in practice in a scrimmage situation. Deuce Vaughn, I think, has that unfortunate sort of trait, right? He's a guy that does really well in training camp practices, but it doesn't translate when it comes to the opposition. I don't know exactly why. I think when I look back at my time personally, it was because I was a more cerebral player. I really, if I knew my opposition, in this case my own teammates, really well, if I knew the structure of practice and the scrimmage and knew, okay, we're going to do, third down situation here, I could figure it out ahead of time. I could kind of game plan for the scrimmage a little bit in my own head and be familiar with the opposition, right? And it's just one of those things you're able to do. I don't know if that's what Vaughn is doing here or just whatever it is. He is really good in training camp, Probably will be really good in the preseason, excuse me. Not so much in the regular season. Now, look, I'm not saying he should lose reps with the twos, right? Someone's got to beat him out. Look, Jadon Blue or whoever's got to beat him out, right? That's who we're rooting for. Phil Maffa, beat him out. Whoever it may be, some of these young guys. And if they're not good enough to beat him out, hey, listen, they don't deserve the time with the twos. But this does make me anxious because part of me worries. It's like, listen, are we going to give Deuce Vaughn a lot of reps during training camp and hurt Maffa's or Blue's development and then see Deuce Vaughn really struggle in the regular season again? I hope not. I'm a little anxious when I see this report. But again, I'll try and stay positive, and hopefully Vaughn takes a big leap in year 2. All right, moving on to another report by Hoyt. I mean, this guy had just a field day here. It's one of my favorite stories of the day here. Brian Scheinheimer talked about how DeMarvion Overshown can be an active participant while watching practice. He has a call sheet, and he's in the hip pocket of Matt Eberflus discussing plays before and after. Look, Overshown, he is one of these guys who every single time there's a report, right, and it's been this way for a couple of years now, whether it's after an injury, after a game, before a game, he just says and does the perfect thing every single time. He is a fan's dream. He is a coach's dream. If the media director for the Dallas Cowboys, he's that kind of dream. I remember when they lost to San Francisco last year on Sunday Night Football, and Overshown had a big sack late in the game that allowed the Cowboys to get a stop and at least had a chance to win it at the very end. And Overshown, after the game, when asked about that sack, at the time it was the fastest anyone had been sacked all year long in the National Football League. An incredible play by the young linebacker. And he said, that's on me. I got to get that football out. And it's just like, what an answer, right? A guy making a great play, a phenomenal play, hyper-athletic play, right? Just outstanding superstar. And his first commentary to the media was, yeah, that's my fault, right? I should have done more. My goodness, that's just awesome to see. And this is just the mindset. He's had 2 different major injuries now with the Dallas Cowboys, and his attitude and work ethic on the other side has been extraordinary. His mindset has been outstanding. And you can just tell based on the reporting, and you can watch it when he's on the field, the Cowboys defenders and the Cowboys players as a whole, as a team, they grow off his energy. They feed off of it. He just has this infectious personality. I am rooting so hard for this guy. I just hope he's able to overcome these injuries. I mean, this is a guy who, again, is training camp. He's doing rehab, which, by the way, isn't easy in a lot of cases, especially with severe lower body injuries. It can be stressful. It can be tenuous. You're on a little bit of an island. You want to be playing football. You're not. It can be mentally hard, but you got a guy here in Overshown who's just wants to be part of the game, wants to learn what the calls are going to be, learn what the strategy is going to be, so he can be 100% ready when it's time, when he's healthy during the regular season. Man, there's just nothing but good reports when it comes to DeMarvion Overshown. He's such a great player. If you look at right now the way it sits, I say a role model, a leader, whatever you want to call it, just an ideal player, an ideal teammate. He checks every box. I wish, look, as a Cowboys fan, I wish him to get healthy and wishing him nothing but the best, obviously. But as just a fan of football and a fan of life and what we've seen from Overshown, fantastic stuff from this young linebacker. What a great guy. What a great addition. All right, talking about a potential scare here. This is according to Patrick Walker over Voice of the Stars, his X account. He posted, scary moment for the Cowboys as George Pickens goes down on a catch attempt, appeared to be a cramp, walked off under his own power to be evaluated, and is now on the sideline watching. He's likely done for the day. And then an update at the end of the day after practice. George Pickens had his helmet back on and was catching off of the machine after practice. So he is 100% fine. Just a cramp, no big deal there. So obviously that's good news, but I do think it's one of those things this time of year where when you have these big names, when you have stars and good players, you're always so worried, right? This is one of the issues and one of the problems I personally have always had with training camp, going back to my playing days at the collegiate level, because, we suffered injuries, NFL teams suffer injuries, and just, is it worth it, right? Is it worth the incredible stress, right? You get up at 6 and you're doing football-related activities, practice, walkthroughs, working out, film reviews, team meetings, all that kind of stuff. Excuse me. And you're going through that the entire day, right? And it's just with that kind of stress, physical stress, you're away from home, different bed, different environment. Maybe you don't have great AC where you're staying, whatever it may be. Maybe you're not getting the right hydration. And then you get an injury and then your season gets ruined because of it. DeRon Bland last year is a good example of that. And that hurt the Cowboys defense right out the get-go. And I think things just snowballed from there, of course, over the course of the season. Just to give a little context there, if DeRon Bland is healthy, and he's able to play against the Baltimore Ravens instead of Carson, I think Dallas beats Baltimore. I think they get a stop or two, and the Cowboys offense, Dak Prescott, had figured out that Ravens defense. I think they actually beat Baltimore. And then who knows what happens the rest of the way with the season, right? It could have been completely different. That's how fast things can turn with a star injury. Seeing this report out of Pickens at first, you're like, Oh boy. But then you get, okay, he's fine, he's good. It's one of these things where I hope over the course, it's a feisty camp, new camp. We'll see how things go. Obviously, you don't want to soft players. You don't want to make them, too easy. But at a certain point, especially with CeeDee Lamb, you look at Osa Odighizuwa, Tyler Smith, across the board here with some of their stars, Prescott, of course. At a certain point, Pickens falls under that lap too. Deron Bland, mention him again. You may want to think about where can we dial back, maybe make sure we don't push these guys too hard. Because again, we got a 17-game regular season coming up. Just some food for thought there. All right, next report. This is according to Marcus Mosher. He posted, again, this is training camp, so be very careful with overreacting. But I always love that. Be careful with overreacting, but we're about to overreact. Matt Eberflus is usually not a big blitzer. That is 100% correct. But we've seen quite a bit of it through 2 days of camp. Yeah, this was very interesting to me because normally the first week or so of training camp, 5 to 7 days, depending how it shakes out, is sort of installing your base packages and some derivatives off of it, right? You're not getting into heavy duty football, 400, 500 level football. You're definitely not getting into game planning. So at this point, you want to keep everything base, relatively simple, so that way you can evaluate every player across the board, right? You don't want to get in something hyper complex and you're trying to figure out, okay, who's going to be our number 5 pass rusher? And you have some super complex schemes you keep throwing at people, and it's hard to evaluate because, all right, who's between the two guys, player A or player B, which one's better? But we're running this weird scheme, so we don't exactly know which one is actually a better pure pass rusher. So you can kind of get yourself into trouble there. I think most teams, they keep it pretty bread and butter. Matt Eberflus traditionally as a play caller is a pretty bread and butter kind of guy. He keeps it simple, pretty vanilla defensively. The fact that he's blitzing a lot early makes me think that blitzing is part of the base package for the Dallas Cowboys. And I kind of like it, right? Because if you look at Zimmer as the DC last year for Dallas, that double A gap linebacker walked up what he did with Overshown and Leah Fowl, Kendricks, and all those guys at that time. I always thought that was so deadly because what it forced teams to do is it basically said Osa Odighizuwa and Micah Parsons are going to get favorable matchups. Because when you double A gap walk up, when you blitz and do things like that, it forces the interior 3 offensive line, center, both guards, and the running back to just stay tight. They have to be stayed close to the football. They can't slide out wide. They can't fan out. So if you've got a great pass rushing defensive tackle, Osa Odighizuwa, he has a lot of space. Micah Parsons has a lot of space. It opens up things, opportunities, and allows you to get creative, do some blitz in a very simple way. I kind of feel like that's what Eberflus is leaning to at this point, including some of these blitzes in their base package early on. Like to see it, and it also helps that a lot of these guys already have experience doing it. They did a lot last year under Zimmer. So again, it's not like Eberflus, and this is where he gets some credit here in my book. He's not coming in here and trying to teach a brand new defense right out the get-go. He's got his defense, his strategy, what he's looking for, but he's also building off of what the Cowboys did last year, and honestly probably some of what they did under Dan Quinn the year before, which again is the right approach to take, and that's why he was such a good hire. This is why as coordinators, I like hiring guys that have done this before multiple times. I understand it can be a catch-22 sometimes, but if your head coach is leaning a certain persuasion, Schottenheimer obviously offensive, I want the other side, in this case defensive, to be a guy who's done it before, who has a lot of experience, who can kind of build off the team, who's smart, who can put his ego aside. It looks like Eberflus is doing that. And if the Cowboys are implementing a lot of the blitzes they used under Mike Zimmer, that's going to cause a lot of headaches for guys like Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels. Obviously, the Cowboys got killed twice by Philadelphia. They had one close win, one close loss against Washington. But people forget in a lot of those ways, they gave Jalen Hurts, at least when Hurts played in Dallas, and they gave Jaden Daniels twice a lot of headaches with their blitzing and the pass rush. I'm expecting a lot of the same with the Dallas Cowboys going forward based on these recent reports when it comes to Eberflus. All right, here, moving on. We got, contract drama. I guess we're going to end on this. Some of the more interesting news of the day. This is courtesy of Calvin Watkins. He posted, CeeDee Lamb said he loves Micah Parsons and deserves a new contract, but exchanging words with Jerry Jones, playing this media game, it's not fun. It's not recommended. All right, sage words of wisdom from CeeDee Lamb. And Lamb's been here before, right? He worked through the entire process, hold out, all of that before getting paid before last season. So he's been there before. He understands the process. Everyone knows Micah Parsons is going to get paid. No question there. He's going to get a lot of money. Everyone knows that. It's just a matter of structure, timing, all that kind of stuff, guaranteed money. All that's going to have to be figured out. But Micah Parsons, 90+% chance of getting paid a lot of money by Jerry Jones. I think what CeeDee Lamb's point here, again, is very smart. Is you don't want to get in this weird world where you create this media distraction because of you're trying to battle with Jerry Jones over the course of the media, right? One of the big problems I have with Jerry Jones, and there's a lot you can gripe with, is that he uses the media as a GM, owner, whatever you want to call him, too much. right? It's one of those things where there are times you can use the media and there's times to do it. Bill Parcells was historically phenomenal at this. This was one of his greater strengths. He knew when to use the media to send a message and things like that to his players, to the organization as a whole. Jerry Jones uses it all the time. And if you're a player in this situation, the best thing you can do is just take a step back and let it happen behind the scenes, right? Let the negotiation go on, let discussions go on, do whatever you got to do. Micah Parsons is basically just watching camp at this point. No problem there. Don't want him to get hurt. He knows how to play football. He knows how to rush the passer. Make sure he's in good game shape for week one. After that, don't want to risk any injuries. But when you talk about getting involved with the media and trying to beat Jerry Jones at this media game and all this kind of stuff, that's a little bit of a concern because that can become a distraction. We know because it's the Cowboys, right? We know everyone on ESPN, Fox Sports, everyone on the internet, everyone is hyper-focused to see if we can make the Cowboys drama big-time news, right? That'll drive the ratings. That'll drive the clicks. What can we talk about with Dallas to drive all kinds of concerns and get all these talking heads around a debate table to yell at each other about how screwed the Cowboys are, right? That's what the media wants. They want to create this distraction and wedge it in. Don't give them what they want, right? Jerry Jones does that anyway. I hate that he does. It's very frustrating, but he does. Micah Parsons, I know it's hard to say, hey, listen, you're what, a third of Jerry Jones's age? Probably a little bit less, I think. Be the adult in the room, as weird as that sounds. I think that's what CeeDee Lamb is recommending here. Take a step back. Let Jerry do dumb Jerry things in this instance. And I'm just to be critical of Jones here. Obviously, he's much more wealthier and successful than I'll ever be. But at this point, when he uses the media, which he does, I think it's counterproductive. Parsons, don't fall into that trap. Don't give the media what they want. Don't make it a distraction. Don't make it noise. We've covered a lot during this video itself, but in past videos, and there's been a lot of good news in general with the Dallas Cowboys. They had a really good offseason, really solid, a lot of football X's and O's moves, not a lot of splashy stuff, good solid draft, and then bang, they hit it out of the park with Pickens. Lockdown Oso Adigizua, right? Everything's generally good hires. Eberflus is a great hire. Clayton Adams, OC, great hire, right? Across the board, this organization's in a really good spot. Schottenheimer, based on reporting and based on what I've seen, I think he was a great hire, great addition to be the next head coach. A lot of people questioned it. I questioned it at first, but what we've seen so far, pretty good. I mean, we'll have to see what happens on Sundays coming up in the fall, but so far, what we've seen, pretty good, right? Don't give the media another opportunity to drive a wedge and create more drama, right? And this is what happens sometimes with Cowboys players because they play for Dallas, they get so much media hype and so much media attention that they feel like they almost have to go do it. Like they have to respond to the media because they see themselves too. They're trending or people are talking about them, whether Jerry said something or not in the media, and they see people on ESPN or whatever talking about them and like, well, I need to respond or I need to say something because people are talking about me. The best thing you can do is to just walk away and not say anything. The best person at this, by the way, is Dak Prescott. He is so good at this. This is one of the many reasons why, even though he's overpaid versus his raw production based on just metrics in terms of how much money he gets in his position based on, whatever analytics you use, like PFF, for example, he's very, very good. I'm not hating on Prescott here. I think he's a very good quarterback. But one of the reasons he gets paid a little bit more is because he understands the media. He understands what it's like to be in Dallas. He knows what it's like to be the franchise quarterback, and he does a phenomenal job of executing it at an incredibly high level. Micah Parsons could take a page from his book. He should take a page from CeeDee Lamb's book. Again, let the media be the media. Don't give them extra fuel. You stay quiet, handle your business. It'll all work out. And come September, you'll be wearing number 11, getting 15-plus sacks with defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus. You'll make a lot of money, tens and tens of millions of dollars. So probably, however many years, 40 million, 45 million a year. You'll be fabulously wealthy, and we can all put this behind us. In the interim, let's not give the media extra meat for they can talk about and drive a wedge with the Dallas Cowboys. Let's just continue to focus on the positives, right? Elon being a steal, Thomas being a steal. Across the board, we're seeing a lot of good things throughout training camp. Vibes are good. Energy is good. Schottenheimer has some smart approaches. He's making smart moves. A lot of good stuff in Dallas right now. The one thing we don't want to do is drive a wedge, drive a distraction. Micah Parsons, avoid the media for a few weeks. I know it's hard. It ain't going to be easy. Just do your best here, man. We'd all really appreciate it. All right, that's all the stories I have for you guys today. Obviously, a lot of things change day by day in the training camp. Exciting time, of course. If you have anything else you want me to cover, any players or anything that you thought I should have mentioned, let me know in the comment section below. I'll take a deeper dive as we get ready for future shows. But until next time, I'm Nick, and this has been Saturday Morning Inspection.